The mystery of Jesus' lost years, those years between his childhood and the beginning of his public ministry, has fascinated scholars, theologians, and historians for centuries. The Bible offers only a brief glimpse of Jesus' life during his early years, with the last mention of his childhood being at the age of 12, when he traveled to Jerusalem with his parents for the Passover festival. After that, the Gospel narratives remain silent on what he did until he began his public ministry at around the age of 30. This period of roughly 18 years has led to much speculation and intrigue, with theories ranging from mundane explanations to profound spiritual revelations. The lack of information about Jesus' life during these years has prompted many to search for clues using historical texts, traditions, and speculative accounts from other sources. It's important to note that the Gospels focus more on the significance of Jesus' actions and teachings in the years of his ministry, rather than offering an exhaustive account of his life. Nonetheless, the question remains, what was Jesus doing from age 12 to 30? Some scholars suggest that Jesus lived a relatively normal life during these years, working as a carpenter in Nazareth, the town where he grew up. This theory is based on the Gospel of Mark, which describes Jesus as the son of a carpenter. According to this view, Jesus spent his younger years in relative obscurity, immersed in the daily life of a small rural village in Roman-occupied Judea. He would have been part of the working class, helping his earthly father, Joseph, in the carpentry trade. This humble, ordinary life would later serve as a backdrop to his public ministry, which was revolutionary in its message and impact. However, many questions arise from this simplistic view. If Jesus was indeed the Messiah, why would he spend so many years in relative silence without revealing his divine mission to the world? Some have suggested that these years were crucial for Jesus' personal development, preparation, and spiritual growth. Just as great leaders in history often undergo a period of apprenticeship or personal reflection before their public lives, it is possible that Jesus used these years to deepen his relationship with God and to prepare himself for the momentous task ahead. In this interpretation, the lost years might not be lost at all, but rather a necessary period of inner development and discernment. One of the most well-known and widely accepted theories about the lost years is the possibility that Jesus traveled outside of Judea during this time. Some historical and religious texts suggest that Jesus may have journeyed to places such as Egypt, India, or even Europe. While there is no direct evidence in the Bible to support this, various ancient traditions and apocryphal texts provide intriguing hints that Jesus might have encountered different cultures and religious philosophies before beginning his ministry. The notion of Jesus traveling to Egypt is supported by the biblical narrative itself, as it is recorded in the Gospel of Matthew that Jesus' family fled to Egypt to escape King Herod's massacre of infants. However, the Bible does not mention what happened after they returned from Egypt, and some have speculated that Jesus may have remained in Egypt for a longer period, studying with scholars or engaging in spiritual practices that influenced his later teachings. This idea is further supported by certain elements of Egyptian mysticism and ancient wisdom that resonate with the teachings of Jesus, particularly in the areas of healing, spiritual transformation, and the divine nature of the soul. Another theory posits that Jesus traveled to India during these lost years. This theory emerged in the 19th century and gained popularity in certain circles due to the striking similarities between the teachings of Jesus and the spiritual philosophies found in Hinduism and Buddhism. According to proponents of this theory, Jesus may have spent time in the East, studying with Indian sages and learning the spiritual practices of meditation, asceticism, and enlightenment. Some suggest that his exposure to Eastern teachings may have influenced the way he later spoke about compassion, nonviolence, and the nature of God's kingdom. While these theories are fascinating and thought-provoking, there is no definitive historical evidence to confirm Jesus' travels outside of Judea. It is possible that the Gospels intentionally omit details about Jesus' early life to focus on his ministry, which was considered by the Gospel writers to be of paramount importance. Nevertheless, the idea of Jesus' journey to distant lands remains a topic of intrigue for many, particularly those interested in exploring the intersections between Jesus' teachings and the broader spiritual traditions of the ancient world. Another important aspect of the mystery surrounding Jesus' lost years is the question of his relationship with his family and community. The Gospels provide limited insight into Jesus' early family life, mentioning his mother, Mary, and his brothers and sisters. However, There are few details about how Jesus interacted with his family during these formative years. It is possible that his family played a crucial role in shaping his understanding of faith and life, but we are left with very little information on this matter. In the Gospel of Luke, there is a brief account of Jesus at the age of 12 when he stayed behind in Jerusalem after the Passover festival and conversed with the temple teachers. His parents, Mary and Joseph, were initially unaware of his absence, and when they found him in the temple, they were astonished at his understanding and wisdom. This event marks the last mention of Jesus as a child in the New Testament. After this, the Gospels go silent on his childhood and adolescent years. One possible explanation for the silence on Jesus' lost years is that these years were not seen as particularly significant to the Gospel writers. Their focus was on his ministry and his ultimate sacrifice. Moreover, the early Christians may have been more interested in highlighting Jesus' divine nature and the miracles he performed rather than delving into the mundane aspects of his upbringing. This is consistent with the Gospel's theological emphasis on Jesus as the Christ, the Son of God, and the Savior of humanity. While the Gospels do not provide a detailed account of Jesus' early life, there are a few references in non-canonical texts that offer additional insight into his formative years. The Gospel of Thomas, a text discovered in 1945 as part of the Nag Hammadi Library, contains several sayings attributed to Jesus during his childhood. These sayings, though considered apocryphal and not included in the New Testament, have intrigued many scholars due to their emphasis on Jesus' wisdom and understanding from a young age. For instance, one saying recounts how Jesus, as a child, performed miracles, such as raising a friend from the dead. Another non-canonical text, the Infancy Gospel of James, provides a narrative of Jesus' birth and early life, including stories of his miraculous conception and the circumstances surrounding his birth. While these stories are not considered historically accurate by mainstream scholars, they reflect the interest in understanding the early life of Jesus and the mystery of his divine nature. Despite the many theories and speculative accounts, it is likely that the true nature of Jesus' lost years will remain a mystery. The Gospels focus primarily on his ministry and the events that led up to his death and resurrection, and it is possible that the years between his childhood and the start of his public ministry were simply not deemed significant in the larger narrative of salvation history. This period may have been one of preparation both for Jesus personally and for the world he would soon transform. In the end, the lost years of Jesus are a reminder of the mystery that surrounds his life. While we may never fully understand what he did during those years, the teachings, miracles, and actions that he later revealed to the world remain as a testament to his divine mission. The years from age 12 to 30 may be lost in terms of concrete details, but the impact of his life is timeless and continues to shape the world today. What is most important is not the specifics of what Jesus did during those years, but the profound effect his life, death, and resurrection have had on humanity. The mystery of the lost years is part of the larger narrative of Jesus' life and ministry, a story that continues to inspire and challenge people of faith around the world. Whether he spent those years in the quiet of Nazareth, in study and reflection, or perhaps traveling the world to learn from other spiritual traditions,